Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday morning to you all. I hope you guys are waking up and feeling awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope everyone's been having a great weekend out there so far. We do have a few things to discuss in this morning's video. The first thing we'll go over is current conditions, current outlooks for today into tonight, and then we'll break down the country section by section as far as what's going to happen today with your weather. There is a couple areas we'll zoom into that does have a more higher risk of strong to severe thunderstorm activity, even a risk of flash flooding. So we'll do that. We'll zoom into even some individual states for you folks. And after we get done discussing today's weather, we will start to move into the future, talk about the pattern over the next few to several days, and really speak on the next week or so, as I do think certain areas will have a pretty wet pattern, but there's other areas that will kind of relax a bit, won't see as much rain, and really enter a nice, calm, spring-like pattern. So we'll speak on these areas. We'll talk about the pattern, nerd out with you guys a little bit. And I will say this right off the dot, I'm not expecting any kind of higher-end severe weather days this week. Now, I say that lightly. I hope I don't end up eating my words there, but I do think there'll be some, slight risk, things like that across the southern high plains. We could have some higher end risk of severe weather over the next few days, but overall, the pattern does not support any kind of crazy severe weather over the next, I would say, 4 to 6 days, but that could change. So we'll speak on everything in this video and get very detailed. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So we're going to take it back to the old ways and show you guys water vapor loop just because it shows the pattern so well. We have two dominating features out there. As far as the pattern, we got two upper level lows, one that's been around for a couple days, another in the western U.S. is beginning to enter the picture and that will influence the pattern pretty much the entire week. So let's draw on this a little bit. Let's make sure this is going to work. And it is. We're good. So this is the upper level low over the eastern U.S. You see it spinning around just like that. And you see the wider colors on your screen. That is more moisture in the atmosphere. They're kind of dull colors, more grayed out, even black in some areas. That's drier air. So this thing is spinning around, pulling up a lot of moist air out the lower latitudes and just bringing in surges of moisture right up through here across the eastern states. And around the actual upper level low, we have moisture associated with that too. So this will bring another day of shower and storm activity across areas of the extreme eastern U.S., but I don't think it'll be as far inland as what we saw, say, over the last couple of days. So we'll speak on how that is going to influence the weather for today into tonight across the eastern U.S. once we get to that section of the country. So we got that spinning around. Let's get some of this off your screen. Let's keep this in the picture. And then we have this feature right here entering in. Okay, this will kind of get more cut off and eventually weaken. And you see the wider colors over the western U.S. states. A lot of shower and storm activity will fire over this area today, and especially right into this region right here. At the end of this arrow, I expect a surge of moisture right into New Mexico and even surrounding states today. There's actually a flash flooding risk and a severe weather risk. And all this flow moving in, you can see how the atmosphere is moving in this area right here. This will actually enhance the severe weather threat and even flash flooding threat over the next couple days across the southern high plains and eventually the south central U.S. And this entire feature will eventually move across the southern states over the next few days. So two upper level lows will be pretty much impacting the weather over the next few days, but eventually this one right here will stop impacting the weather as much over the next couple of days. So moving forward here, looking at watches, warnings, advisories, things like that. We do have some dense fog out here across the south. It's very moist, humid. Some red flag warnings up here in North Dakota, areas of Montana. It's dry, fire risk up here. And even down here also here in New Mexico and Arizona. It's wild. We actually have a fire risk right here. It's dry. And we have flood watches up in the green. So, it's weird to have those right beside each other, but here we are. I do think we'll get a lot of rain for you guys' standards here in New Mexico today, but there'll be a lot of rain across the entire Four Corners region, even some winter weather advisories as kind of a cold pocket aloft will be associated with this upper level low across areas of the western U.S. So we'll actually get some higher elevation snow and these purple colored areas where we have winter weather advisories in place. Elsewhere, it's pretty quiet, nothing too crazy ongoing. Now, the risk of severe weather, we do have a marginal risk. We'll kind of zoom in a little bit closer to this region right here. Level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather goes all the way up to the Ohio Valley, goes through areas in the Mid-Atlantic and the extreme eastern sections of the U.S. like the eastern Carolinas and southeastern coastal areas of Georgia, and pretty much the entire eastern half of the peninsula and northern sections of Florida. We need the rain down here, but we are going to run a risk of severe weather, even a tornado threat. And then we'll zoom in over here. I do want to note, big area of the Rockies and western U.S. at least has a risk of thunderstorms today, general risk, but we'll kind of zoom into this area right here. There is a slight risk up for areas in New Mexico and a very small section of western Texas. So level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather in the dark green. As a marginal risk, level 1 out of 5 includes like Santa Fe, Albuquerque, and those areas all the way down to Midland and Fort Stockton in Texas. Places like that. So what's driving this? Let's zoom back out a little bit. Tornado threat. There is a pretty kind of large squiggly 2% risk that pretty much goes across the entire marginal risk area. So there's a 2% risk of a tornado in these areas today. All the eastern Carolinas, the entire marginal risk I just broke down basically. 2% risk of a tornado across New Mexico and pretty much the entire slight risk area today. And the wind threats, not very high across either area, just a 5% risk of damaging winds. And the hail threat, not very high across this area, but we could still get some hail with some storms, but a little bit higher in this slight risk area. Right here, there's a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. Now, the excessive rainfall outlook, I think yesterday was a great example of, hey, there was a huge, large 5% risk area across areas of the eastern U.S., and we had a lot of flash flood warnings or flood advisories out there across the eastern U.S. with just storms training over the same areas. So we could see that today in the Mid-Atlantic and areas of the Northeast and Ohio Valley, but a little bit higher of a risk of flash flooding across areas in New Mexico. We have a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being exceeded within 25 miles in a given location in that yellow area. So be aware of that. If you live in New Mexico, you're tuning in, say, hey, I know I don't have as many probably viewers from this area of the country than I do points east, but definitely be aware of this. Now let's break it down section by section. We'll take a broad look at everything first. We do have a lot of rainstorm activity surging across areas of the eastern, southeastern states, the eastern sections of those southeastern states right now. As we start to get to about midday, we'll have some thunderstorms kind of hovering around the eastern counties of the peninsula of Florida. Storms will try to form behind the main batch of energy this morning in the eastern sections of North Carolina. I'm telling you, these could produce a quick spin up. I honestly think today's and into this afternoon, this evening's storm threat has a higher potential of, a higher tornado potential than yesterday. But we'll see what happens. And then we get into this evening. We even have some showers kind of pivoting around areas of the Mississippi Valley also, and just some storms dancing around here. But let's go on and just take a closer look. I want to show some special attention to Florida. I hear you guys. I know you guys have not seen much rain lately. Let's hope you can get some over the next few days and avoid the severe weather. But we take it to about midday. It does show some storms, kind of isolated, not super widespread. You got some storms near Orlando, down here in sort of the interior sections of the South Central Peninsula. Well, just the southern areas of the peninsula of Florida. And then we start to get into the middle of the afternoon. Strong to severe storms could be present along the eastern counties of Florida and the east coast of Florida. And then we get into this evening around dinner time. Storms still dancing around here. And now listen, these could produce a quick spin up. There is a 2% risk of a tornado here, so don't be surprised. Daytona Beach down to Miami, if you get a tornado warning, don't be surprised one bit. 8 p.m., 9 p.m., still some storms dancing around. Then you get to, tonight, things might begin to calm down somewhat, and then we'll have an opportunity to do it again tomorrow. Now, we take it in Georgia and South Carolina, not as widespread in regards to storms further inland, like back to Columbia, the Greenville-Spartanburg area, Atlanta. I think this will be more so up against the coastline, maybe an hour inland. But, we start to get to 6 p.m. There's some storms trying to develop around Myrtle Beach. Not very widespread, though. Some storms just inland trying to develop. I think we could get more widespread activity than what this model run is showing down here in southeast Georgia, but we'll see. There's some big storms off the coastline, but otherwise, other than that, it actually finally shows some storms getting going from Savannah to Charleston around the South Carolina coastline around 2 a.m. tonight. 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. So we actually might get more storms later tonight across the eastern sections of South Carolina and just the southeast coastline. Now, this morning up here in Virginia, North Carolina, we'll cover a section of kind of the Delmarva also. But we do have some rain moving through this morning. By the time we get to about lunchtime, this should be hitting areas of the Outer Banks, southern areas of Maryland, the Tidewater, Virginia Beach, Norfolk about midday. Could strengthen, could maintain. But what we'll watch for is about middle of the afternoon, about 3 p.m., some additional storms will try to develop. Fayetteville, Greenville, Wilmington, Jacksonville, Raleigh, anybody could see it in this area. But additional storms will form, and these could produce some small hail, gusty winds, but there's also a 2% risk of a tornado with these. So be aware. We'll have to see how these behave today, 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Just watch this area right into here, all the way up into Virginia also. These could be present in Richmond, up to Charlottesville. And we start to get to this evening, 8 p.m., 9 p.m., more storms continuing to be around or either form. We got some storms out in the Outer Banks also. This is 11 p.m. This is midnight. We got a lot of storm activity in the Outer Banks. My head looks like it's in the way a little bit. But, we get into the middle of the night, stormy night. So if you're vacationing out in the Outer Banks, it's definitely going to be a stormy overnight period for you folks. Now, heading on up here to West Virginia, we'll include areas of Ohio, eastern Kentucky, and PA also into this. But we take it to about midday, some scattered downpours will begin to develop. Some of these could produce some small hail, gusty winds, even that 2% risk of a tornado. But they'll pivot around this upper level low to the west of you guys. And 5 p.m., just scattered activity developing. Who knows who exactly it's going to hit? It'll be difficult to figure out. But 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., as you can tell, just more so isolated to widely scattered showers and storms. Nothing too crazy one way or the other, but don't be surprised if you get a tornado warning or two. Now, to show the entire Northeast, the severe weather threat does drop up here, but that doesn't mean you're not going to see any storms. This is midday today, lunchtime, 1 p.m., pop-up showers and storms in PA. Look at this surge of moisture up through areas of the Delmarva, Delaware, New Jersey, getting into New York City. If you like a rainy Sunday afternoon, like your guy here, Mitch, it's always awesome for a good Sunday nap, and it's always a good excuse to not do anything. Actually, I got some things to do this afternoon, so I'm hoping it doesn't rain in my neck of the woods. But we get into this afternoon, surge of heavy rain and bedded storm activity as possible through Delaware, up through New Jersey, especially eastern PA, all the way up into southern sections of New York, even getting into southern New England. And eventually this rain will try to get all the way up into Vermont and New Hampshire, tries to touch the southern end of the Adirondacks this evening, and we could get a surge of storms through western PA. I'd watch this one. We got some rain in Ohio also, but I do think these storms will literally hit a wall as we have some sort of boundary right here kind of blocking these storms from moving too far north. But we start to wake up tomorrow morning. We're just going to have some scattered showers to greet your Monday morning up here. So rainfall between now, I do want to say between now and like 2 a.m. Tuesday, 1 to as much as 2.5, 3 inches of rain is possible in the purple area. Purple area, indicates an inch or more. So it really pinpoints this area. So you live in western, southern New England, New England in general, areas into the Delmarva, the Mid-Atlantic. Certainly a washout. That's probably going to occur over the next 36 hours or so. So be aware of that. South Central U.S., we will include New Mexico in this one instead of the Western U.S., but we take it to about midday. Storms start to form very quickly, early this afternoon in New Mexico, and then they'll move pretty much from, in general, south to north. They'll kind of pivot more southwest to northeast and then due north after that. But, we start to get into late this evening, and some of this moisture will hit the higher elevations of Colorado and actually drop some snow, but we'll just get a lot of rain. Storm activity surging through New Mexico. But I do want to mention, let's go on and zoom into this area. Let's talk about Southwest Texas, then New Mexico first. As we're starting to get, it's about lunchtime today, not a whole lot. And then we're starting to get into 4 p.m., 5 p.m. We'll talk about those storms in New Mexico here in a second. 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Even though it doesn't show much on this specific run, I think it is possible to get some storms, especially north of Midland, Big Spring. Some of these could be strong to severe this evening, so just be aware of that. Overall, it doesn't show a whole lot of anything, but as we're waking up tomorrow morning, more rain will begin to develop from San Angelo's Abilene to greet you guys for your Monday morning. Now, across New Mexico, different story, widespread activity. This is lunchtime today. Look at the storm starting to form down here near Alamogordo. Hopefully I said that right. Near Roswell, storms will begin to develop. And if you see these little circular things come up on these storms, this indicates some stronger updrafts where we could have a tornado or two out here. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a couple tornado warnings. It's around 4 p.m. Look at these storms near Carlsbad. Roswell might sneak closer to Clovis and Hobbs. There's that 2% risk of a tornado down here. You see these little circle things coming off of it. This indicates maybe some rotating updrafts. More so just solid heavy rain up here, but these could pack a punch too. We get to 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Might get a little break, and then more storms develop later this evening, kind of in the same areas. And this might consolidate into more of a blob of heavy rain and embedded storm activity up here in the northeastern half of New Mexico. So just a lot of rain is possible in areas that don't always see it. So we'll take it, and rainfall in this area between now and 12 a.m. Tuesday. And then once you start to get in that purple area, that's over an inch of rain. Santa Fe could get a half an inch to an inch of rain. Roswell, half an inch. Clovis, a little over that. And Hobbs, maybe closer to an inch. So we'll definitely get a good bit of rain in this area for you guys as standards. Now, the north central U.S., another rainy, cooler day in Illinois and portions of Indiana as that upper level low continues to spin overhead. Rain will become more widespread later on this afternoon, this evening, maybe in northern areas of Indiana, the southern half of lower Michigan, maybe even a bedded rumble of thunder is possible. But just pesky cloud cover and just consistent rain shower activity will keep your temperatures down, maybe just stuck in the 40s for certain areas all day. It's how it happens when you're directly under that upper level low. And I'll kind of take a look at this. You see this spin right here? If you're right under this spin, it's going to remain cool. It's going to almost feel like a fall cool day. So that's what you're going to be dealing with in portions of the Midwest today and even areas of the western Ohio Valley. So be aware of that. I mean, it's just kind of a day just to chill indoors, honestly. But today, this morning, across areas of the western U.S., quiet start. But by the time we get into this afternoon, widespread shower and storm activity across just the southwestern half of the western U.S. I mean, just... you got the upper level low moving in. So if you look really closely, you'll see all this action kind of twirling. It's kind of spinning. And then we get into tomorrow morning, we'll do it again. But just a closer look at the southwest, the Four Corners region. Look at how all this activity just becomes widespread. I mean, showers, maybe some storms out there, Nevada, Utah, areas of California. And we've already spoken on New Mexico, but Arizona, western areas of Colorado. Just widespread. And then after the loss of daytime heating, things could begin to relax a little bit, and then we'll probably do it again tomorrow. Just maybe positioned a little bit further east as the upper level low moves a little bit further east. So a lot of action. It's funny, you can actually see the swirl on this. Like, look at it. Well, it's not a good color. You can see it kind of going just like that with the predicted rainfall over the next 36 to 48 hours. And around the actual low, it's just kind of doing this. So a lot of rainfall in these areas that, don't always see a lot. So expect that. And then there is going to be a little bit of snow in those higher up elevations. A lot of snow when you get way up there. I mean, feet of snow possible. Well, I'd say 12, 24 inches, so 1 to 2 feet. But temperatures, there's that pocket of cool air aloft. And listen, if you're not being affected by cloud cover and rain, you'll warm up into, say, the 60s, for example. Indiana is just going to be a chilly state today in 40s, 50s. But, if you go over to Illinois, heck, maybe even Chicago, it'll jump up into the 60s, maybe 70s. So it's just, it's just that pesky upper level low. It brings its own little cold air, cold core, if you will. So you can see 60s and 70s surging all the way up to the southern New England area, even some 60s all the way up into northern areas of Maine. It's a nice day. It's cooler. It's not as hot just in general across the eastern U.S. today. And then conditions out west, it's crazy. Maybe a hot spot today, one of a couple hot spots could be the northern high plains. 80s that it's reaching, maybe even a 90-degree reading in Montana, North Dakota today. So nice conditions. It's cooler across the western U.S., but some of these showers and storms will be cool. You might get a thunderstorm in the 50s across Nevada today. So moving forward and talking about what's to come, this is the day 2 outlook. This is for tomorrow to start your work week. What's happening here is you'll still have this upper level low in place across the eastern U.S. So as this continues to sort of drift eastward, which is this feature right here, this area will continue to move eastward. The threat of strong to severe storms will begin to move eastward and even lessen up as this kind of upper level low begins to weaken and it gains some latitude and you just lack dynamics. But there will be another risk of strong to severe storms across areas of the mid-Atlantic all the way up to Lake Erie tomorrow. And then there'll be a risk of strong to severe storms in eastern to southeastern Florida. And then we kind of get it. We have like a break between both upper level lows. And just remember, and we'll talk about this here in a second, there's still a spin going on in the atmosphere with this upper level low. So this spin is actually yanking down more stable, dry air behind it. So that's why you're void of any thunderstorm activity through this area for tomorrow, because of that dry air being yanked down by the upper level low. But new features coming into play. This is our upper level low that's moving in right now, and this will bring a strong to severe thunderstorm risk across areas of the southern high plains and just Texas tomorrow in general, a little portion of Oklahoma also. So there is already a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather for areas of western and central Texas for tomorrow. So let's zoom into this region. They already have a 5% risk of a tornado. This is storm chaser's paradise in this area because it's just more wide open compared to eastern Texas, a lot more wide open. So 5% risk of a tornado south of Lubbock down to Big Spring, Midland, and north of San Angelo. I expect this to be tweaked a little bit. There's a 2% risk in the green area. The wind threat, pretty large, 15% risk in the yellow, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then the hail threat, we're probably going to get some supercells in this area. So not only in that yellow area, we have a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch. We also have a 10% risk of hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger. So sort of a setup that we saw a lot on, not really last week, but the week before last. So this will last for a couple days. But moving back to this and going to that and this, that, and other, we go to day 3. If you notice, we still got thunderstorms over the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. This is still the upper level low. It's still trying to get out of here, but whatever's left of this upper level low is fully kind of ejecting and weakening at the same time and moving across areas of the south central U.S. So it's crazy. This is day 1. This is day 2. This is day 3. You can see the movement of where your severe weather risk is because of the progression of the upper level low. So you'll have a slight risk in Austin, Houston, Beaumont, College Station, these areas right down into here, more so in eastern Texas. Marginal risk up to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Wichita Falls, back into Louisiana, southwest Arkansas, all the way down to the Mexico-Texas state line. But the highlighted threat area is right in here. And for now, we just know 15% risk of severe weather within 25 miles of a given location. I expect this to change a little bit also, could tweak. Now, beyond day 3, so day 3 is Tuesday. Beyond day 3, there's nothing. I can just show you guys if you don't believe me. There's nothing. But I could see, this is my call on day 4, which is Wednesday onward. If I had to predict something, I would say we're still going to get marginal risk days. I'm going to say you're probably going to get some marginal risk days from Wednesday all the way to the weekend. I think it'll start in the western sections of the Deep South first and then eventually make it into areas of the Southeast. But I would watch for just chances of strong to severe storms across this entire area over the next basically midweek through the weekend. I think it'll start in this area kind of midweek and eventually closer to the weekend make its way closer to this area. But I think we're just going to keep the moisture down here. I think we'll keep just enough flow rumbling through this region. And I think for the most part, up here, we'll stay pretty calm. So let's explain why. So what you're looking at here is the 500 millibar flow. And you can already see the two dominating weather features on here. Remember, we keep talking about upper level lows. You see them both on your screen. This is for tomorrow afternoon. So let's draw on this a little bit. So here's your upper level low right here, spinning around. You can see how the wind barbs right here. Let's look at this one over South Carolina. See how the flag is pointing that way? That means the flow is coming out of that way. So that means that your flow is going around this upper level low like this. Okay. And then the flow around this upper level low feature moving into the southwestern U.S. is going just like this. And as it gets cut off, it'll wrap around just like that. So these currents around both of these upper level lows are sort of competing against one another, especially right into here. So if you're wondering why, for example, if you go back to this and you look at day 3, let's look at that. Let's look at day 2. If you're wondering, remember why I just circled this area, how it's completely void of thunderstorm activity for tomorrow? Well, this is for tomorrow. And the reason being is because if I do this area right here again, this upper level low is yanking down flow. The flow's coming out the north. So this is actually yanking down cooler, drier, more stable air around this upper level low. So this stabilizes the atmosphere right in this region. Now, this upper level low right here is bringing not only flow in the purple color area, but it's kind of bringing back the moisture into the picture. There's also probably some flow in the lower levels coming out the south, aiding in a push of moisture into Texas. But in general, I just want you guys to understand, I know I use the word flow a lot, probably excessive a bit, but I just want you to understand this is flow at 18,000 feet up in the air, and this is a great way to gauge the pattern. So watch how as I get into Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, this area right here begins to shift this way, and this area right here begins to shift this way. They're both moving east, like most of our weather patterns do. We start to get into Tuesday. See how that little circle in the eastern U.S. is starting to move around. So this is Tuesday afternoon, and the reason why you have a slight risk of severe weather across eastern areas of Texas for Tuesday, remember, let's go back to this. This is Tuesday, slight risk right in here. It's because now you have a 60 to 70 knot mid-level jet going over areas of Texas. And this, of course, is coming out the southwest, so this is probably going to yank in a lot more moisture into the picture. Your dew points will climb into the 60s and 70s. And, you'll have the overlapping conditions for severe weather. And this is Tuesday. You still have this feature in the eastern U.S. This is still bringing down some drier air right through here. So, you're probably here in the southeast and the eastern U.S., we're probably going to have some drier conditions. And it's going to feel more like spring, at least for the first half of the week. For example, Georgia, the Carolinas, Tennessee, Virginia, heck, even northern Florida, we're probably going to have some mornings back into the 50s. We had a lot of mornings in the 60s this past week. Well, it'll be back in the 50s because of this drier air being pulled down right through here. The drier air allows for the temperatures to go down a little bit more. So it's still early May. You're still going to get some lows in the 50s. And trust me, we hang on for that as long as we can because we know here in the South, the armpit of hell is on the way. It's going to be hot for days on end all the way through September and October. But watch how this feature kind of gets cut off and it continues to progress eastward, and we kind of finally get rid of this feature. It's still in place as we're getting into Wednesday, but for the most part, it's starting to stop influencing the weather. And this little area weakens. It kind of just creates just enough flow in this area. So, we start to get into Wednesday afternoon. You see the purplish area down here, purplish blue. This is just enough flow in the atmosphere kind of coming out to west to overlap what will be a pretty moist environment, which I'll show you here in a second, to create rounds of strong to severe storms. In general, you look at this area that I'm putting my cursor over as kind of a forcing mechanism in the atmosphere. You don't have a ton of flow, certainly in the low levels or really in the mid levels either, but there's enough, and this will force and get some storms going, some complexes of storms most likely. And then we get into Thursday, and that feature has finally moved on off. But another trough could actually dig down into the northeastern U.S. as we get into the end of this work week. But I think regardless, as we get into Thursday, we continue just to have some stout westerly flow down here in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, even a little bit into Georgia and the Carolinas now. So this will probably continue to allow for some shower and storm activity where the best moist air will be. And I think we'll get just daily marginal to even slight risk days for really winds probably. But I do want to watch this feature right here that's trying to dig down into the northeast as we get into Friday. You see this bowling ball looking thing? This could be a sharp trough that moves down and can do something weird with this. So by the time we're into Friday, honestly, I'm not even comfortable really talking about beyond that because it gets weird as we get into the weekend because we have to watch this feature. This could bring a cool shot of air to the northeastern U.S., and it honestly could bring down a ton of dry, stable air all the way across the eastern U.S. So it actually could suppress any kind of severe weather threat into the weekend. So the weekends are really a wild card. But I mean, check this out. After we get past this, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, man, we get this blocking pattern where all of our flow, hardly no flow for the south, nothing down here hardly, but all of our flow is just screeching up here and then going like that. So that'll be interesting to see if that happens. If it does, we might not have a whole lot of anything going on across the lower 48, and we might just have maybe some severe weather episodes right up into here. Maybe it's a tough one when we get into the weekend. We got a lot to figure out. We got a lot of model watching to do. But just speaking on the shorter term through the weekend, this is what I'm talking about. Look, as we get into Monday evening, just enough moisture down here into western Texas to get some strong to severe thunderstorm activity. But you see the dew points in the 50s and 40s into the eastern U.S. We have just enough of a slither of moisture up into the mid-Atlantic getting pulled north on the eastern side of this upper level low. For example, like this is tomorrow evening. If I go back and look at water vapor loop, you see how everything's getting yanked up like this? Okay, this is because this is on the right side, the eastern side of this upper level low that's spinning around just like that. So this yanks in that moist air pretty far north. So as this feature kind of moves this way, that means that your moist air is going to get pulled up into this way here in the next 36 hours, which makes sense because if you compare that up against the dew points for 36 hours from now, tomorrow evening, that's where your better moisture is. At this point, cold front moves in, stabilizes the air mass for most of the southeast. We actually get better thunderstorm activity to the north. So we start to move further here in time. And we get into about Tuesday morning. And more moisture starting to build in this area because the influencing kind of suppressing factor of this upper level low is beginning to move to the east. This is allowing more moisture to kind of build back into, come on, pivotal weather. You are being a little annoying now. You are moving good. So as we're starting to get into Tuesday evening, you can see that deeper moisture, dew points in the 60s and 70s, begins to move back into the south central U.S. and the western deep south. Then we start to get into Wednesday. You see that moisture creeping a little bit further north and just becoming deeper across the south. And then we get into Thursday, and this is when it gets weird. So there's a decent amount of Gulf moisture, for early May standards across the deep south, 60s, even some 70s along the Gulf coastline. But look at this big push of dry air that's about to move into the picture. Okay, watch how it clears out like this area right in here. Okay, let's move forward here. Okay, a lot of moisture building up into the southeast. In the mid-south, this is getting into Friday morning now. Look at that boundary between cool, dry air and very moist air. So that is that sharp cold front because of that upper trough that we just talked about that can move into the northeastern U.S. But all your moist air, as we're getting all the way into this coming Friday, stays down here. This will allow for daily shower and storm activity, but eventually that cold front could clear out the air mass a little bit across the south. But the deeper we get into May, the more we get into June, the more we don't get cold fronts anymore across the south until we start to get to the end of summer, early fall. So interesting pattern coming up, and just kind of looking at the European model as far as what this looks like. We get into Tuesday, you can see all this storm activity up in Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, and then you see all the storm activity associated with this upper level low, and then you see a clearing right in here. Now watch as we get into Wednesday, some of that storm activity begins to move a little bit further east across the deep south. Then we get into Thursday, and then we're starting to see just more widespread activity across the southern states. And then we get into Friday, storm activity across the southern states again. And then the weekend is just a big question mark. But I can tell you between now and 7 a.m. Sunday, this is how much rainfall is being predicted by the Weather Prediction Center. Good bit of rain could fall, but look at the deep south, Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama. We could get over a half a foot of rain over the next several days. And, just to look at, say, the southeastern states, a good bit of rain could fall across the deep south and southeast. Now, the further east you get, the more you need the rain, especially in the Carolinas. Are we going to get it? For example, let's crawl a little bit further up the eastern seaboard. A lot of this rain right here is for what happens over the next couple of days. But now, how far north will this rain get? It's wild. You can see the cutoff here, and it matches up well with the cutoff of the better moisture at the surface as far as dew points. So that's all I got, guys. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Thank y'all for continuing to support the channel as far as your views and likes and subscribing, things like that. Definitely a slower time with the channel. But, it is what it is. You just keep rolling. People are out and about doing things. And, if the weather ain't active, I don't blame anybody one bit for not tuning in. So you guys have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow morning. Have a great ending to your weekend. God bless.